Good evening, everyone. I call the February 6th, 2023 special school board meeting to order. It is 7:32 p.m. We're in conference room C of the Fisher Administration Building at 12121 West North Avenue. Ms. Summers, please call the roll.
Ms. Muehlfeld? Here. Ms. Fraley? Here. Mr. Meyer?
Here.
Dr. Jessup Banger?
Here.
Dr. Hoyk? Here. Mr. Phillips?
Here.
Ms. Willis? Here.
Our first and only item on our open meeting agenda is action to approve the creation of school board stationery for the purpose of congratulating students and staff for accomplishments and exemplary service. Dr. Hoyk.
It is recommended that the school board approve the creation of school board stationery for the purpose of congratulating students and staff for accomplishments and exemplary service, and I so move.
May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Fraley. Any board comment on this? Mr. Meyer?
Yes, as the card was requested by a board member who was an active election candidate, the creation and use of the card at this time might appear to be self-promotional by that board member during the election, thereby invoking questions of proper use of public funds and campaign finance laws. As Julia Summers was the person to whom the request for the card was made, as the executive assistant for the superintendent, but Summers also serves in the role as clerk for the election. And as such, as the card may appear to be promotional for the candidate board member, if used before the election, it raises, to my thinking, appearance questions of objectivity of the election clerk. So with this said, the other comment is that the card says from the board, but that would mean there was a board act.
I believe that, Mr. Meyer, that has been changed.
Okay, so I can support this if the card is not used until after the election.
So a quick reset on this. One of the roles of the board, certainly over time, has been to celebrate the actions and successes of members of the district, students. We have folks here at board meetings for this. This is a board that would be available to all board members. Certainly, I think the expectation would be that it wouldn't be used for private election things. If anything of that would come up, I think certainly action could be taken. But certainly acting as a board member, this would be something that would be available to all board members now, presumably if it wanted to be moving forward. And I believe, can I ask again, what was the cost of the, do we have that?
For 75 postcards, it would be $33, and then shipping was $27.
Okay, thank you. So any other, before Mr. Meyer, you've already had a chance to speak, and using Robert's rules, I'm going to give everyone else an opportunity to speak on this if they so wish. Ms. Muehlfeld.
I would thank you. In the prior, we had district note cards with district letterhead that all staff and board members included are able to use for just that purpose, communicating congratulations. I thought that was a great idea. I'm not sure if we do that now. We don't have anything now, and that's why this had come up. Is that what I understand? Okay.
Right. And it would simply say this, a note from a board member. So it doesn't have the power of the full board or speaking for the full board. I'll pass this around if you want to see it.
Okay, so just help me understand. I like that the district could have letterhead postcards or note cards or something like that for this purpose, appreciation for the purpose of thanking student school board members. I'm just trying to think of some, other ways. And I have always found that helpful. So I don't necessarily link it the way Mr. Meyer's linking it, but I can understand that viewpoint as well. I would like a resource available for board members as well as other administrators who want to show appreciation for people in our organization and or even community members who have done service outside of, extra service or student school board members. I would like that. I don't think it needs to say a note from a board member. I think they can just be blank note cards. And honestly, if it's the cost of just board members having access and the cost of that per board member, I'm willing to donate the amount of money that, for 7 board members to be able to send those kind of notes. So, I mean, that's my feeling on it. I don't want it to be such a big deal, but I do want to be able to have proper logoed note cards and postcards to be able to send appreciation appropriately.
Understood.
If I could just clarify, there were some inaccurate statements made. I originally made the request from Dr. Means after attending the WSD convention. And he directed me to talk to Ms. Summers if it was something that I wanted to pursue. And it was an idea that I got at the convention that other districts were sharing as ways to engage kind of the larger district and the larger community.
That's really.
So I think one of the things that we have to sort of acknowledge here is that we have to enter into this space with an assumption of goodwill. And if somebody does not demonstrate that appropriately, then I think it deserves follow through or follow up. But it's bothersome to me that we're even having this conversation because it sends a message that other board members would knowingly do untoward things. And I think it actually speaks to some of the things that we're going to be discussing later. I have absolutely sent congratulatory emails versus cards. And I think there is something about getting something in the mail that feels more personal, feels more an acknowledgement of something than just an email. So I wholeheartedly support this. I would prefer we do not put any conditions around this, as I think it is, while I appreciate what could happen, I think that sends a message of presumptive belief that something will happen. And I think there's enough negative things being said about this board that we do not need to add to it by saying that our fellow colleagues would do that.
Any final comments for those who haven't spoken yet?
I'll just say I really appreciate your sentiment, Ms. Fraley. I wholeheartedly agree. I think that this is a nice gesture. So it wasn't something that I had considered or thought about, but I really appreciate having it, and I think it's a nice opportunity to say thank you to people who go above and beyond that we want to acknowledge.
I think we've done this in the past. Yeah. Thanks.
Mr. Meyer.
The only communication I have on this topic that speaks to the question of how the request was made is an email from Julia Summers that says, quote, Ms. Willis asked me to create a postcard that the board could use. So there was opportunity for Dr. Means to say that the request had gone to him first. None such was communicated to me. I want to stick to this topic, this agenda item in this conversation right now and not allude to other things, because if we want to open the door to talk about the other items on tonight's agenda in public, I am fully supportive of that. But let's wait till that agenda item comes up. Appearances matter. And one can be 100% righteous and have an appearance that some might lead to question. So that is the point of my comment.
Thank you, Mr. Meyer. You've made your final comment on this item. Anyone else have any final comment? Ms. Mufeld.
Okay, so just, I want to clarify, what design are we approving? Are we approving a design or are
We
we
are.
just approving postcards?
Mr. Meyer
be
requested that we agenda and approve as a board a $32 expenditure for this item.
Total $32?
Yes.
Oh, I thought it was like $32 per board member or something. Oh, okay, well. Anyway.
$30.
I question the accuracy of that number.
Well, again, I would like to see a generic postcard on letterhead, on district letterhead, because I don't think probably Miss Willis wouldn't have made this request necessarily if there was already some stock that, board members could use to send congratulatory notes. And I have used district letterhead in the past and district postcard letterhead to do that. So thank you, Ms. Summers. For, the idea also. And thank you, Ms. Willis. But maybe we should just have, if we're going to invest in this, let's have it really be used by more folks in the district, possibly. Is that okay?
I would say that is outside the scope of the board role, but if that feedback would like to be given before a final template is approved, I think that would be.
Okay, well, I'm fine with, I support postcards. So,
What we are doing is ultimately approving the creation and expenditure. The comment I would make is I feel like it is wholly inappropriate for the board to utilize our time, our public's time for this type of request. I feel like it is looking for something to find wrong. If board members have things that need to be clarified, there's opportunities to call them. There's opportunities to email and engage as colleagues. And I would ask that we do our best to rise to that level and do that going forward. With that, I'm going to take public comment on this item before we do a roll call vote. Seeing no public comment, Ms. Summers, please call the roll.
Ms. Muehlfeld,
yes.
Ms. Fraley,
Yes.
Mr. Meyer,
No.
Dr. Jessup Banger,
Yes.
Dr. Hoyt,
Yes.
Mr. Phillips.
Yes.
Ms. Willis.
Yes.
And that item passes. It is 7:44 p.m. Ms. Phillips.
It is recommended that the school board adjourn into an executive closed session per Wisconsin statute 19.851 F and G to discuss financial, medical, social, or personal histories or disciplinary data of specific persons, preliminary consideration of specific personnel problems, or the investigation of charges against specific persons, except where Part B applies, which, if discussed in public, would be likely to have a substantial adverse effect upon the reputation of any person referred to in such histories or data or involved in such problems or investigations, and to confer with legal counsel for the governmental body who is rendering oral or written advice concerning one or more complaints against board members and or by board members, which complaints may be investigated pursuant to board policy 9130, and I so move.
May I have a second?
Second.
Call for discussion, please. It's a discussable motion. And may I comment? The law requires that you accept comment.
Sure.
I will offer two motions after explanation. The first will be to release the board president's email of the afternoon of Friday, February 3 at 2:35 p.m. that was sent under cover of attorney-client privilege by using a CC to attorney Lori Lubinsky. The email contains information as to the agenda for this evening. The second motion will be in regard to my right to and need for my own legal counsel, Mr. Ben Cross, who is in attendance here in person this evening, to attend the closed session that has been noticed for meeting with counsel. My comments are as follows. The proposed closed session will be a violation of the open meetings law, as the intent is to discuss complaints against the conduct of board member Michael Meyer, me, and discussions of complaints of board member conduct are not within the exceptions to the open meetings law. Regarding this closed meeting, I have not been informed of the charges against me. They are kept secret from me. I have not been informed of the identity of my accusers, including at least one board member. They are kept secret from me. The public meeting notice does not contain information contained in the board president's email of February 3. It is kept secret from the public under cover of attorney-client privilege. The planned meeting itself is secret. Secret charges, secret accusers, secret agenda, secret meeting. I will vote no. I hereby offer a motion to immediately release to the public aforementioned email of February 3 from the board president containing agenda information. And I so move.
Is there a second? Seeing no second, that motion dies.
Therefore, I move to, on my second item, to allow Attorney Ben Cross, he's seated in front of us here, into the meeting as counsel for board member Michael Miner under the meeting notice that said this meeting was to confer with counsel. And I so move.
Is there a second on that item?
A second.
Or discussion? Ms. Frilly.
I think about how I word this. Will the discussion in closed session with board counsel be specific? Will the item that the board is discussing with board counsel require Mr. Meyer to have access to his legal counsel at any point pursuant to the question at hand? I don't know how to ask this question and stay within not breaking. I want to respect the request for counsel, and I want to acknowledge that we are in this position because of things that happened prior to tonight, and we are asking our counsel as a board to advise us while simultaneously having Mr. Meyer in the room. So I wonder if the question is if Mr. Meyer should recuse himself from the meeting initially so that we can have conversation with counsel, and thus if then there appears to be a need for Mr. Meyer to have counsel, his counsel is able to join the meeting. I feel like I'm talking in circles, but if somebody would like to try and extend on that, please feel free.
Dr. Jessica Baker, I believe legal counsel's on the Zoom now. You may want to ask Ms. Levinsky.
Ms. Levinsky,
I'm just promoting her to panelist now so that she can engage. Okay, Laurie, you in the meeting now?
I'm in the meeting, yes.
hi, Ms. Levinsky. Have you been hearing the conversation as it's unfolding?
I have, yes, thank you.
Is there anything that you feel that you can speak to within open session?
I do, actually. Two things. Number one, the closed session was in part a two-part closed session under the open meetings law. The second part that allows the board to confer with its legal counsel is just that, the ability for the board to confer with its legal counsel, which is myself. There would be nothing prohibiting Mr. Meyer from excusing himself if he so chooses to go confer with his counsel outside the presence of the board. It would be wholly improper for the board to have a closed session discussion with Mr. Meyer's legal counsel present. I don't have a problem with Mr. Meyer if he so chooses, and the board being sympathetic and giving time, if that is his wish, to go confer with his legal counsel. But Attorney Cross is not the board's legal counsel. I am. And the closed session was agended to provide the board with legal counsel for its questions and answers. So I hope that answers the question as best I can in open session.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Levinsky.
May Mr. Cross comment on this in open session? He's available here.
He is not neither a member of the board. He can speak during public comment. That will not be part of the motion. So at this point, no, I will not recognize him.
You have discretion, President Jessup Anger.
I believe the
to
question has
allow
been
him to
asked and
speak.
answered, sir. The answer is no. Any other board comments?
Yes, sir. This is appalling that an attorney is sitting here representing me regarding accusations against me, and we have opportunity for the public to hear the other perspective about why this attorney is appropriate in this closed session. And this board refuses to even hear the comment.
Sir, I'm going to defer and rely on our legal counsel to provide us our legal advice. Thank you. Any other board questions on this motion?
So, Dr. Jessup Anger, could you explain how we came to use the complaint policy that we're using tonight for the executive session?
In conferring with legal counsel, it is the only complaint policy that is available to the Wauwatosa School District. And so we are utilizing it in lieu of another policy being in place.
And typically, from my understanding, it's 9130, correct?
Correct.
9130. And all the board is really doing this evening is considering the information that has been brought to us.
That's correct.
With our attorney present.
Correct.
And with the full board, including Mr. Meyer.
Correct.
I will
Mr.
note that
Meyer,
we were
you've spoken
told that this
twice
is a
on this item.
procedural discussion that we're going to have.
That's correct. Mr. Meyer, you've spoken twice on this motion. Seeing no other board comments, please call the roll.
Ms. Muehlfeld,
Yes.
Ms. Fraley,
Yes.
Mr. Meyer.
So just a
Wait.
moment.
Oh, yes.
So this motion is for Mr. Meyer. Can you read it again? I believe this is to allow legal counsel into the room.
Allow Mr.
Oh.
Meyer's legal counsel.
Yes, this is the motion to allow Ben Cross, Board Member Myers, legal counsel, into the closed session that you're voting on.
Thank you for clarifying.
That's the amendment. It's a separate.
That's the amendment to the motion,
Yes.
Thank you.
or the motion on top of the motion.
Can you recall the roll?
Ms. Muehlfeld,
No.
Ms. Fraley,
No.
Mr. Meyer,
Yes.
Dr. Jessup Anger,
No.
Dr. Hoyk,
No.
Mr. Phillips,
No.
Ms. Willis.
No.
We are back at the original motion to move into closed session. Any final board comment on this item? Mr. Meyer.
I have noted in discussion, it is my sincere belief that to move into closed session now will be a violation of the open meetings law. As such, a vote yes to proceed into this meeting will expose that board member to whatever liability there may be under that law if ultimately it is found to have been in violation of the law. A vote no will allow that board member to still attend the meeting, but to be not subject to the penalties of any violation that might be found.
Ms. Lubinsky, is that something that you would feel comfortable responding to?
She's on.
Oh, and you're on mute.
I apologize. Yes, thank you. I will be brief. It is my legal opinion that the board has every right for the two stated reasons in the notice that were read with the motion to go into closed session for the limited discussion that will be had. Thus, I do not believe Mr. Meyer's statement of the law is correct, nor do I believe that his second statement of the law that somehow voting no absolves someone of any potential liability is also correct. So I believe both statements are wrong, and I'm giving the board members advice that I believe it is fully within their right, if they so choose, to vote yes on the motion.
Thank you. Any public comment on this item?
John Michael, 772 North 116th Street. I do believe that the attempt to go into closed session is inappropriate at this point in time. Based on the fact that if Mr. Meyer is the accused person here, subject to the discussions in that closed sessions, he would have the right as himself to request that this be done in open form, because it would be his integrity that would be in question, that be exposed to the public scrutiny if it's done in open session. Therefore, it is his right to determine if that is done in open or closed session. And if he is indicating that he wants that done in open session, it should be done so.
And I so request that we postpone this and agenda it for open session.
I can comment on that, Mr. President, if you would like.
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, 19.851B only applies when there is an evidentiary hearing. I am familiar with the subsection of the open meetings law being cited. It is certainly true that if we were going to have an evidentiary hearing, that may indeed be Mr. Meyer's right. However, it is not the board's intent to have an evidentiary hearing. This is a preliminary discussion concerning procedure, as Mr. Meyer correctly noted earlier. It is not an evidentiary hearing. Therefore, Mr. Meyer does not have a right under 19.851B to request that the matter, or to demand, excuse me, that the matter be held in open session. Thank you.
Thank you.
So my name is Ben Hitchcock Cross, and I guess what we need to be clear on, I think, are really two facts here. Number one, you've got the stated purpose, that the purpose is of this closed session. It now is to go and discuss the process for dealing with complaints against Mr. Meyer. I assume that's because, and from what I heard from the president here, that the existing complaint process only applies to employees of the district, and Mr. Meyer not being an employee, got a problem there. I also didn't hear in any of the exceptions to the open meetings law anything dealing with discussing process on how to deal with a complaint against a board member. So I see how it's interesting that it's said and being acted on as legal advice here, apparently, and that's what she's saying, that somehow there is the words to avoid embarrassment somehow equal discuss a process for dealing with the complaint against Mike Myers. I don't see that. Somehow discussing with legal counsel equals discussing the process for dealing with the complaint against Mike Myers. It doesn't do that. And it does seem like what the counsel is saying here, and the whole thrust of what you're trying to get at, is that by not discussing the actual charges against them in closed session, then you don't invoke this other statute here. The big question really, I think, that needs to be asked, and we certainly haven't had addressed, that I've heard anyway, is how these exceptions that you've cited here, again, legal counsel and to avoid embarrassment, equal to discuss the method for discussing for the charges against Mike Myers. So, that I think, again, it's very clear that you have missed the discussion. You may be led to have missed the discussion. I don't know, but certainly there hasn't been any discussion here on, again, why, because now we've got it out on the open, And the subject of this email has been, you've outed yourselves here and said, hey, we're gonna go into closed session to talk about something. And again, I haven't heard any exception. And the other thing that might be troubling is what you're saying that it is not what apparently it is. Right? So you've got two issues. You've got the open records, open meetings, but you've also got saying one thing and doing another. So they happen to align here, but just in terms of, being honest and forthright with everyone, I think that needs to be mentioned as well. So, that's the crux here.
Thank you, you're at time.
That's one thing.
Mr. Cross, you're at time.
Just saying another thing. Thank you for your time.
Ms. Levinsky, any response to that?
I have no response because I'm not exactly sure what the point of that was. The board does have legal authority under 19.85 to go into closed session if the topics about which the board will discuss fall within the purview of the exceptions of the open meetings law. It is my legal opinion that the board's intended discussions do fall within that purview. The board need not have any other publicly stated justification other than the motion that was read and seconded. That's all I have.
Thank you. Seeing no other public comment, please call the roll.
Ms. Muehlfeld,
No.
Ms. Fraley,
Yes. I'm voting to go into public session
You're voting to go
or
into
closed
closed
session.
session.
Yes, okay. Yes.
Mr. Meyer,
No.
Dr. Jessup Banger,
Yes.
Dr. Hoyk,
Yes.
Mr. Phillips.
Yes.
Ms. Willis.
Yes.
We are convened into closed session.